Beechwood Park is one of your Odyssey and Oracle plays. It says it's play 3. I thought this was one of your best plays that I've read thus far. The integration of Beechwood Park as the sanitarium for, who was it? Christine Morgan.
Yeah.
But I remember you telling me about the construction of this play and that you were originally going to focus on Christine Morgan.
Yeah.
And that Julie sort of just emerged as the better character. And I agree. It would have been a more traditional route to focus on Christine, who's sort of this evil little psychotic, whereas Julie is more of a conduit for both characters, and she has more of an interesting history with Danny Wagner.
Well, this is a play that's similar to the earlier play that I did with the two sisters, the Lujack sisters. That play, let's see, what the hell was that one called? That was not Hung Up on It. That was Maybe After He's Gone. And so this was actually based on a real incident. I think I did a true life memoir on it. I used a different name for the character. This was a girl that threw a rock at this tall, skinny, ugly woman that she didn't like, and she was obsessed with this woman over the course of a few months. I guess she was 13 or 14. She was my age, so this was the late 70s. And one time she actually threw a rock, hit the woman, it like got her in the temple, and this woman who was 6 foot just dropped like a sheet, and all the kids in the neighborhood scattered, and I could tell that she was sort of traumatized what she had actually done, and I was the person who informed her husband and whatnot, and but I changed some of the details. Like I wasn't there until the ambulance came, but then this Christy, the one who I call Christy, the real life version, a few years later, I remember she got anorexic, and I think it was her kind of bizarre psychological punishment, her way of trying to identify with the skinny woman by becoming skinny. And so she ends up in the sanitarium in the play. In real life, it looks like she didn't, just like the real life basis for Aldo Vincetti in the Vincetti Brothers novel didn't really end up dying of an overdose. He apparently was injured in 9/11, though. So I was going to do a play on that. And then as I was doing it, the older sister, who in real life, the Julie Morgan character, I didn't know that well. Julie was the more popular sister. She was a year and a half, 2 years older than me and her younger sister. And she had been famous when I first moved to the neighborhood back in 74 as being the toughest girl in the neighborhood, just like Aldo Vincetti, or not Gino Vincetti in the Vincetti Brothers was famous for being the toughest boy. And I think I even have them mention Gino Vincetti in this play. I forget if this is the play that happens. But
they do. Yes.
Oh, they do, yeah. And so the Julie Morgan character is famous for beating up this supposedly tough guy, kid, when I first moved there. And so that was her claim to fame. So as I'm doing it, I'm saying, well, let's say that aside from the anorexia, that Christy ends up permanently sort of hospitalized. Well, what would fall on the responsibility of the older sister? They did have some real life older brothers. I used one of them in the play, and he's sort of uncaring, unfeeling. I wouldn't say narcissist, but whatever. He excuse me.
Well, I thought he was the comedic element in terms of the fact that he's posing in the mirror and pretending it's Arnold Schwarzenegger or something.
Yeah, and so but the idea came to me as I was writing that. Would it be more interesting? I mean, the older sister I thought was the prettiest sister, but in real life I wouldn't have had a chance with her because 2 years is a big difference when you're in your teens. But I did make out once or twice with the younger sister. But in doing it, I tried I found myself more drawn to expanding fictively the Julie Morgan character because someone ending up in a nut house or crazy, that's so Blanche Dubois. And I was telling Jessica how, I watched the old Elia Kazan film of it, and I read it. And interestingly, in my latest play, my last play that you haven't read yet, I actually talk a bit about that play and how in the real writing of the play, the so-called rape scene isn't really a rape scene. It's written very ambiguously that it could be a seduction scene. And it's interesting that everyone has assumed it's a rape scene. But anyway, I didn't want to make Christy Morgan just sort of a third or fourth rate Blanche Dubois, or even just a second rate one. And so she, after the incident with the woman, she sort of fades in the background, and we get the sort of dilemma, the ethical dilemma that the oldest sister has to dealing with the doctors in a similar fashion to those that the Lujack sisters dealt with after when their brother was in the nut house. So that became sort of the, you know, I guess the focus of the play here. And then at the end here, let's see, we're talking about, she has a little soliloquy that ends here, talking
Well,
about.
so, Christy also psychopathically attacks other children too, and there's almost this maniacal group of children that go around. And you're actually the most temperate of the bunch, but attacking a fat girl named Lisa, and this other psychotic kid named Kieran, who's a closet homosexual, who's egging her on the whole time.
Yeah, and those are again reworks. If you reread part of the Vincetti brothers, those characters are basically just renamed and reworked slightly from some of the kids in the Vincetti brothers that weren't as far gone as the Vincettis, but was still. And looking back on it, there were a lot of characters that were quite violent. I grew up in a very violent thing. Even the girls were violent. The girls, there's the stereotype of the New York, girl chewing her gum, bitch, you want to take me on, bitch, that kind of thing. And these girls, in a sense, were like that. But, this was where I took a real life thing, tried to put it a few decades in the future. And, we have Julie lamenting at the end of the play. She has a big, long soliloquy here as